How's this? This is one of the big cypress pines, the cardboard house. It's actually just through there. Look at the crack. This whole big hunk with all these branches on it, it's about a foot wide, is about to just snap off and fall out over near me, come down around here sort of thing. There's a fig tree there and there's the laundry and all that. It's funny that many people, trees live forever. Well, some do. Some certain trees in the States, and we have Huon pines here, which apparently live for thousands of years, but just your run-of-the-mill old cypress pine, well, these are all planted in 1927, and, well, they don't last forever. There'll be a little bit of firewood and all of that, but probably a bit of damage on drainage pipes. Yeah, funny, I never really noticed that until just recently, but it looks like a little mousey or something's noticed it anyway. There's a plastic bag in there. Or a bird or something. Alrighty. Well, tabby cat's getting very big, ain't you, bud? Eh? Bits of wire, I'm just getting out of the grass. Flaming bits of wire everywhere. I'm still getting a lot of wire and bits of scrap metal and rubbish out from underneath these boxthorns as I'm cutting them. Old tabby cat here got herself a rabbit the other day and was eating it under the veranda. And, well, the feral rabbits we have were basically brought out from England along with English red foxes for the purposes of sport and were released not terribly far from where I am. And I may possibly know one of the descendants of the rich family who released them. And as a result, these feral rabbits have a lot of fleas, and old Putty Tat here was clear of fleas until a couple of days ago. But anyway, good job getting the rabbits, bud. Black Kitty here's always been quite good with these rabbits and has got most of them of late. Chasing after bees in amongst the little oxalis flowers. Anyway, yeah, I've been continuing to work on the boxthorns. It never ends, although it's sort of getting closer. It's not too far away. What I showed you the other day, about 100 metres of stuff that was cleared, it actually goes further. It goes about 200 metres, and a lot of these stacks I've burnt and re-stacked again. What didn't burn, restacked again, and got rid of the random odds and sods here and there, because there's a few individual ones, and I've just got to go down and knock out an individual one in a minute. It's one of these things, you tend to get a lot of the bigger stuff doesn't burn, and the prickles do burn, and then you're left with all this stuff that's 2 inches thick or thicker, and it seems to be a bit of a problem. Some of these stacks seem to be a lot of large stuff and a lot of gaps, not terribly dense because I've only thrown them on top of each other, but I try and make up for that by getting other smaller bits and pieces and, stuff with finer prickles and new ones basically that I've just cut out and throw it on top of those in an attempt to burn the prickles out and take the bigger stuff with it. It may not work, or it may do what it often does, which is just burn the finer stuff and leave the heavier stuff behind, but don't know if I showed you guys that one there. That's something my father actually made in the early 70s. Base was starting to rot out, something chronic, so he put another base on it with an old plough disc that I found inside the house, I think it was, or something. A few new legs. He made that actually, early 70s before he was married. And a bit of 1/8 steel there, and but you get past your air holes and then it basically stops. And I'm probably going to have to use that on some of this stuff here. So it's sort of heavier and there's not many prickles in there, and it's sort of not going to burn on its own. And this is what I sort of do. I get a lot of the, still to push this up, but I get a lot of the finer stuff, throw it over the top and attempt to burn the larger stuff that you can probably see the cut ends of down there. And of course, as I'm trying to light it up or whatever, Black Kitty is always trying to crawl underneath it. She's great with that. Ain't you, bud? Hey? Yeah. It's not terribly great when you're trying to cut one down and she's trying to flame and crawl under it as you're trying to pick it up or make it collapse or whatever. It's, it goes on and on and on. I've had quite a bit of success. If you get a bit of a breeze blowing, it seems to go quite alright. It'll flare up a hell of a lot better. This has had a lot of dead stuff underneath last night, and I just put a couple of bean tins worth of diesel on, and by hell, off it went. And singed a bit of the tree. Sure as eggs, there's probably flipping more wire underneath all this ash. This is long since cooled out, because we're just about 1 o'clock the next day here. So I found a horseshoe in there actually. Found a couple of horseshoes lately. That one was there, and another one sort of further across near the peppercorn tree. There's old rabbit holes underneath, but a lot of these are long deserted, but that gets out a lot of the fine stuff anyway, and then I'll just sort of hack all this up, and that'll be nice that I've got to take care of there for a while. There's the agaves there, and that was the bunch I was standing there before. I've chopped all that up and pushed it into a heap. Anyway, I'll tell you a few other things. Shit. What do you know? Another bit of scrap metal. Flipping everywhere. Take that back later. There's been a few things happening lately with work and whatnot. As I mentioned, the supervisor was rather sick. I'm probably not supposed to blab all this shit, but well, long story short, he's getting chemotherapy, and it's worse than first thought, and really quite serious. Freaks me out a bit because he's the same age as I am, and yeah, basically the big boss has said that he's probably not going to be back for at least a year, if not never come back. So yeah, it's sort of disturbing. There's been a new bloke start a while ago, and I was the supervisor's favourite, so any little short days or whatnot, I would end up getting all the little odds and ends. This bloke who started more recently, he's probably been there about, I don't know, 6 weeks or something like that. He's the Big Boss's favourite. And so as a result, he gets all the odds and ends, and I only get the bare base hours. For some reason, probably because there's a particular skill that they were pushing me to learn, and I was trying probably too hard to learn it. There's a real knack to it, and I was trying too hard. They were pushing me quite a lot, and I fluked it a few times, and then I sort of stuffed up, and I didn't remember how I fluked it, and I just tried too hard for something that you need to try slowly and gently to do. And basically, I can't do this particular skill. This new bloke can do it, and he can do it better than the big boss who's been there 14 years, and he's just picked it up, bang, straight away. So as a result, he's sort of a lot more useful to the company, and he gets all the little odds and ends hours because he's sort of the big boss's favourite, whereas the supervisor's favourite. But who would have known that the supervisor's probably not going to be back for a year, and possibly not back at all. But anyway, surprisingly, because this bloke's so well skilled, and maybe the difference between the big boss and the supervisor's way of doing things, we have also become shockingly more efficient as a result. Some of these days are only half as long as they have been in the past. I'm not joking, you know. Things that would take 10 or 12 hours, we done just then in 5 hours. Something that has taken up to 12 hours to do. So as a result, me pay isn't quite as good as it is, but there are other things I may know about that I can't say much about that maybe soon to give me a bit more work than I have been getting. And I'll mention that if and when it happens. I don't talk much about my work. It's sort of, I'm under a shitstorm of confidentiality agreements, and I mean it's like 4 or 5 pages long worth of confidentiality clause that I had to sign off on. This is why I can't give you any video of the pigs and whatnot. A lot of it stemmed from we're sort of, it's very tied up with other piggeries. And we're associated with a number of other piggeries, some of whom, well, basically had animal activists bust in there and film and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't directly owned by our boss, but we were associated with the same company group and all that. So then the thing come down from headquarters that basically you got to rip all logos off everything, off the building, off the company vehicles, off the bins. Everything is under security cameras. They got what they call the compound, which is basically flipping big high fence. I'm not too certain if there isn't flaming barbed wire on the top of the blooming fence, but it's big, like a tennis court fence around the joint. And then on top of that, there's only 2 doors that you can come in. There's other doors that you can exit out of for fire escape that have got no handles on the outside. There's only 2 doors that have got handles on the outside of the entire building, and you've got to swipe in with an RFID. And that's how serious security is there. And they are paranoid about any video or anything like that. And I am actually not even allowed to tell you the address if you want to know the address. That's how paranoid they are. They've tried to pretty much delete all traces of where their address even is to lower their chance of being, raided by these blooming animal activists. Yeah. So that's just sort of the way it is, but I'd love to show you a number of things and whatnot, but You know, it's all stuff I've signed off on that I can't say anything about, can't video. I mean, we aren't even allowed to take phones out to where the pigs are. That's how serious it is, you know. And part of the cameras, there's actually cameras inside with the pigs to make sure that if anybody's treating the pigs like shit, they'll get the sack if the boss sees them on the camera. And I'm assured that the cameras work quite well, because it's actually it was easier for the supervisor to check if I was at work by looking at the cameras than the emails that get sent by the RFID system when you come in and out of the building, because the whole lot's time logged when you enter, when you leave, everything. So yeah, but yeah. But anyway, we'll see how it all goes, and it's one of these things, you know, you never sort of know if owls are going to pick up or not, and they do seem to go through a few people. They have in the past. I don't know. I sort of know what causes it, and I don't know if it's going to slow down or it's going to continue, but I've got a good idea of what has caused it. But yeah. Anyway, that gives me plenty of time with all this crap here. Yeah, I think that's about all there is really worth saying and whatnot. Look at all the rocks. It's friggin', let's give you an idea of the rock. My place doesn't have many rocks till you come down here. What it sort of is, the way the lay of the land is, you've got like, we're on the edge of the valley and shit down there. You've got like where my house is, and then you got like about a metre of soil, and then you hit like this big thick rock shelf, and you can actually see it in my parents' place as well, because they've got a waterfall that goes off that same rock shelf. Very long time back, some of my early videos actually show that waterfall in very crappy definition, but yeah, this is the big rock patch, and then as you get down a certain distance again, the soil changes several times actually down there, and the rocks stop, but it's a big thicket all through there. The soil at that thicket there is different from the soil just above this boxthorn up near where you can see the pines there. A different soil there, and then you get to that thicket just there, and the soil's different, and then you get sort of further down around there somewhere, and the soil actually changes. It's black clay, very dark brown soil and clay mix, and you get down to there, and it's bright orange clay and sand mix. And it's actually beautiful soil down there, but it actually, the brown stuff here isn't too bad, but when you get the clay, it's volcanic soil, and this is volcanic rock. That's why you got all the holes in it. And that's sort of very dense black clay, and it's just sort of too hard for a lot of nice little plants like lettuces and whatnot to get their roots into, but flaming no shortage of rocks. One day I actually want to get myself some sort of a rock crusher, because I tell you what, it's always good to have crushed rock for the driveway with all the potholes and crap. And it's not so good in a wet winter trying to drive on black clay, because you can get bogged quite easily. Well, you don't get bogged, you just spin and spin and spin. You can't get any traction. A bit more blooming firewood in the making. Yeah. Anyway, I suppose I shall leave it at that.